Thank you very much, Liz. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. I just want to thank you for making sure that we went through with this event, because the story of how we support women in business, I believe, is central to what we are here for in the Labour Party, where I do believe that we have led on the gender agenda in all areas of policy, but also around business and the economy, that we've got to trash this myth that the Labour Party is not there for business. Quite frankly, if you can see what the Tories are doing to business, what the damage that no deal would do to business, what the damage that a Tory party that is now increasingly dominated by men will do to women-led businesses. No, this isn't something that's just a sideshow. This is something that's quite central to the prosperity of women and for families across the country. And I'm incredibly proud that I not just founded the Favour Women's Network almost 15 years ago, when we'll be having big celebrations, and delighted we have Sarah, who is our current director and chair, who is here at the back, fabulous leadership as well in the Favour Women's Network. But the issue of women's economic prosperity has always been very close to what the Favour Women's Network has wanted to drive. Last year I also became chair of the all-party parliamentary group on entrepreneurship. And in Parliament I launched the report that they had done on women in business, with an amazing number of women entrepreneurs that came to that breakfast. Now, what is always surprising is when we talk about entrepreneurship, we always have the image of a man in our minds. And don't say that you don't, because you do, unless you're a woman entrepreneur or someone who has since self-employed, as I was for a while as well, in your own business. But the issue is this, that we are still in a minority. And what we know is that there is still a big gender entrepreneurship gap. Last year, the proportion of women involved in early stage entrepreneurial activity, or TEA, as is measured by the OECD, of women was 5.3% in Britain, and this was compared to a TEA rate of 11.5% for men. Now, there is a lot that shows quite consistently across all areas of data that is collected around women and business, that there is a lower rate at which women start up businesses, a faster rate, a slower rate as well of women's business growth, and a faster rate of women's business decline or death. Now, on those three measures, I don't believe that any country has a strong way in which they're countering that. But Britain particularly should be punching much more above its weight, not just for women in this country, but also internationally. We should be having much more of an agenda that is focused on improving the start-up growth and survival rates of women-led businesses. That's why for a number of years I've advocated us having a strategy, a national strategy for closing the gender entrepreneurship gap in this country, but also how we look to how women-led businesses can be growing and competing with all businesses nationally and internationally. The truth is that there are barriers to women-led enterprises, and it was in the APPG for Entrepreneurship's call for evidence around women-led businesses that it was identified that there are difficulties and obstacles that women face in maintaining businesses, including networking opportunities that favour men and less access to finance. Now, a few years ago, I also visited America as part of doing some research around this issue. And what was so interesting to me was how women-led businesses and the targets for supporting women-led enterprise is still very much held at federal level, where the president will get a report each year, where the women-led women business organisations across the country will be focused on supporting women in enterprises locally. A lot of the growth is also coming from immigrant women, many of whom may not actually find it as easy to get a hold in the sort of traditional employment workplaces for the discrimination and other issues that we know exist, but also because when it comes to your flexible lifestyle or work style, work and lifestyle preferences, increasingly we see women wanting to balance their work and their and businesses and their home life in a different way. And when you look at some of the leading entrepreneurs that we've seen, we're starting from Anita Roddick, who I would often use as an example, her insight into what it was that was missing for herself, for people in her family, for how she wanted to change the world. Actually, it's women that often have insights that lead to new businesses, new products, and movements of change that aren't just about how we redefine consumerism, but also how we redefine what we want to see as a change in the way the economy is, but also then what the products and services might need to be for us to see that change happen. So there is a lot of women-led enterprise now in the UK, but what I increasingly find is that, just as we've heard, those networking opportunities aren't there. They're still not there at the right times. They're still led often by men who are kind of thinking, what can we do as a sort of tail end to the other activity that they might be leading. But let me come finally to the point about Labour. Because the truth is that Labour has a very strong track record on women's enterprise. It was actually after Labour came to power in the late 1990s that we had the Women's Enterprise Task Force that did a lot of research. It was led by, really, I would describe it as a pincer movement. Patricia Hewitt, Tessa Jowell, Harriet Harman, many others, Hazel Blears. They provided a pincer movement across the government departments where they worked as women ministers to forge an agenda that was going to be focused on equality, on change, and on economic outcomes. They realised and they drove change that led to the setup of a number of women's business organisations here, only one or two of which survived because the Tories cut all the funding to them. And then slowly what they were building up with the networks of support locally began to die away. Now there's only so much that you can see those such services survive the austerity that we've seen. We've seen the cuts that have come to local services, our public health, our youth services, and step by step you've seen the domino effect of one cut leading to another set of cuts, another set of cuts. So the women's business organisation that still exists in Liverpool is one of the trailblazers still, in my view, for how women have built a community supported and leading the way with chambers of commerce and other organisations, maintaining an ecosystem around it, so that when you go in as a woman, it's like a one-stop shop of a supportive network, high-level skill, coming to you to help with mentoring and access to finance and other matters. But let me close with this point of research as well that was done by MIT with a professor that I worked with for a while. She did some research, and she had the same presentations that were written as business plans presented to investors. When men presented, or young men presented those business plans, they got more investment from those investors than women who presented the same business plans. The truth is that there is bias out there, and we have a long way to go to challenge that bias. But what we can do is make sure that the structures are designed and in place, that there is accountability from the Prime Minister down, and that every local chamber, every local authority, and every part of our party, including Labour Business and the role of bureaus in our CLPs, should be focused on asking that question, not just how we are supporting local enterprise, but how we are supporting women leading enterprises in our communities. Thank you very much.